Welcome back to the Sharon Fitzmaurice podcast, where we celebrate the resilience of the human spirit. A wonderful guest today, all the way from Florida, is Julie Wright Halbert. She's a death doula, end-of-life educator, and leading national voice for grief literacy. Her work is grounded in decades of public service and shaped by the sudden loss of her husband. She speaks and writes on death literacy, ethical presence, identity after loss, and what it means to live and die awake, consciously choosing intention and meaning in each moment. Julie is also the founder of Rising Phoenix Life and author of Divine Ashes Ascending. Julie, you are very welcome.
Oh, I'm so grateful. I'm blessed to be with you, Sharon. I'm thrilled.
Thank you so much. So, as I said before we started recording, what intrigues me about all of the wonderful people I've met all over the world is the journeys that life has taken us on. And when it is our own life and we choose, to have a career and do all of these wonderful things, but when we meet somebody and we fall in love, and our life sometimes takes a different trajectory because, we're walking side by side with the one we love. But when that person passes, it can change the trajectory of our life in many ways. So I would like to look back, Julie, at your life first and see where you were, what your dreams and goals were, where your passions lay before even meeting your husband.
Absolutely. I think one of the most interesting things is that going back to even my childhood, I really was enthralled and loved children. I was a camp counselor. I was always intrigued with like the human spirit, and there was something childlike in that, I would say, right? So before I met my husband, I interned. I went to University of Maryland in College Park in Maryland, and then I worked for Senator Hollings from Charleston, South Carolina, where I was born and raised. And I was fascinated. There was a nation at risk that was brought in the United States. Really, we're going back into, I believe it was 89. And so Senator Hollings wrote the Democratic response to that. And at that point, I was so intrigued and really passionately committed to urban education, passionate about disadvantaged children. So I went to University of Miami Law School to particularly work in that space. And so that is where I met my husband. So I was already passion driven, soul aligned, very much, very early in my life and in my career. But of course, his dying completely transformed and shaped my life.
Mm. Yeah, I love that you met, when you were, I love the way you said that you were passion driven and soul aligned. Is that something inside of you stirred your need to, go out and follow that passion and bring it into the purpose of your life? And meeting your husband then was another passion. It was another, your line is souling or your soul aligning with somebody else that was obviously going to mean so much to you. Tell us about your journey together with him, Julie.
Yeah, and what comes up immediately and like touches my heart deeply, right? Like that space took me, I became an education law attorney nationally, representing 78 urban school districts. But Jim was so supportive. He was so kind and so loving. And you don't always see that in relationships, but we were so aligned that we supported each other before and when we had our two boys.
Mm,
And so when I think about him and my heart swells with it, is that how much he held me up and I held him up in the space of what we had as our family.
mm,
And that continues till today, which we can talk about because he connects with me, he connects with my children, and it's very, very much a part of our day-to-day living. So he, of course, was with me in the physical space, but it's very much with me in the spiritual. And I would say to you, that part was like early love, creating a family, the kids playing sports. I volunteered a great deal in the community. And actually, his father has passed as well as his mom, but they always were intrigued. My own grandmother was intrigued. I had many cases in front of the US Supreme Court on civil rights, desegregation, special education laws. So, it was a whole different window of my life, I would say. And so we shared those interests at that time. And no question, which I would share, with your audience, is that Grief is an entry point into much deeper awakening and shattering of the soul. And so, of course, his sudden death was part of that shattering.
And I'm so sorry to hear that because I read that he passed very shortly after his cancer diagnosis, which again, when I think about people when they're diagnosed with any, unwellness or disease, that it's a time for us to almost reevaluate our lives and what our priorities are. And if you're anything like me, Julie, it's to kind of say, okay, what can we do? We know we have this to deal with, but what can we do to support you, the person that has been diagnosed, but also myself and you having children and even extended family around you? Did you even get an opportunity because he passed so suddenly after the diagnosis to even prepare for it?
Okay, so you have touched so many important topics. So kind of we'll take them a little bit at a time. First, to answer your question, um, preparation, not really. It was traumatic. It was of course, we couldn't even get the diagnosis. He went into the hospital November 10th, November 5th. November 10th, we found out it was a cancer, but they called it, I don't know if you've ever heard of it or any of your listeners have heard of it, is a cancer of an unknown primary. So they couldn't find where the cancer stemmed from. They found undifferentiated epithelial cells in his liver, but we had to go to MD Anderson to find out that it was bile duct cancer. It's cholangiocarcinoma. That was 1 week before he died. The Thursday before we returned home from MD Anderson, the doctor said very clearly to Jim, I can put you in the hospital and you will die of an infection, or you can go home. He immediately looked at me. We were with a dear friend who helped us arrange an angel medevac, which bless them, how they help people from crisis, and left that afternoon to come home to our children. We had 1 week together with that diagnosis and no treatment. And hospice came in, and I do a lot of volunteering, and it is my work with the death doula is with the hospice, and they were angels. And really, Jim had the opportunity to speak with his mother, with dear friends, family. His brother was with us, my sister, my brother. Everybody came to be with him in some of these final hours. And from that place, he was really grateful. I mean, Sharon, what I would say to you, to every person listening, is that we have the ability in these final hours to choose a space of gratitude and joy. It may sound crazy, but it's real. When speaking to the ambulance drivers or on the plane with the medevac, I talk about this in my book, Divine Ashes Ascending. I will always remember his space of kindness. He was asking these other present souls, and I say souls because they are souls, about their lives, about their essence. And it amazed me. I remember thinking, like, how is this possible that he's not sitting with anger and resentment, but yet in a place of peace and calm? I learned so much of it from him in those days. And I'll share this also. He said to me and shared, it's a chapter in my book, that he was being held in the hands of God and he was at peace within 24 hours before he died. Now, note we met in law school. He was an engineer by trade, a builder developer. He did not speak of religion, but he always spoke of kindness. His legacy of teachings to our children was kindness. It was about how we treat every soul that we come upon. Doesn't matter about degree, education. It's about seeing. It's like me seeing you as we sit here, is feeling that energy as we were talking about, you in Ireland, me in Florida, but we are completely present, which is something I teach are these 7 presence vows and how we show up to each other. But I want to go back to something else you said, and I want everyone to really take it in. What is ease versus dis-ease? And how is it that chronic illness comes into our lives? And how is it that we must stop and look at what is the purposeful alignment? If you believe, which I do, what is your soul journey? And how may you awaken to the stress that's showing up into your life or even a diagnosis and how you may shift that into an awakening to decide to move differently through your life. I would say to you, my husband was in fight or flight, bless him. He was reading The Body Keeps a Score by Bessel van der Kolk. And I have studied heart math and heart coherence. And I utilize that with my clients and coaching. How do we move into that presence of joy, even through the deepest grief and shattering possible, so that we may heal? And so it's really a dichotomy of what is ease, what is dis-ease, and how that impacts our entire physical and spiritual experience.
Mm. Thank you so much, Julie. When you spoke of Jim and in his, final 24 hours, and he felt like he was held in the hands of God, and that he had no really, big talkings of God before that, but it was kindness. And isn't kindness one of the greatest gifts that we can offer each other, living day to day, present to present? As you said, my words are, I see you and I hear you. I say that to myself when I'm going through a hard time, and I'm able to say that to my clients or people that I meet. I'm here. I'm here for you.
Yeah, it's
Well,
all as I talk about the vows that I created, but it's to be present with what is, right? And it's how we see the essence in each other to be, I see you, I hear you. There's a gentleman on LinkedIn who's talking, he talks all about kindness. And I shared one day, I was in the OBGYN's office. I was having an ultrasound based on I had had one ovary that was removed earlier in my life that was enlarged along with my fallopian tubes. And I had a grandmother who had a very rare fallopian tube cancer. And there was a young woman present, and I could tell she was very nervous. And so, of course, I saw her. I held space for her. I started to speak with her, and immediately her nervous system could calm, right? So I was coaching in the place of life rather than professionally. And that's what it means to see each other, to see ourselves. And I'm sure you're familiar with the Ho'oponopono prayer, but how important it is to see ourselves, to recognize, forgive ourselves, to say thank you and I love you to ourselves. And also, I'm sorry. And really being able to bring that to others, right? Like that's the true act of kindness. It's the deepest level of the soul of where we can be kind to our own being and also to one another. And that's really what's quite amazing. I told you I was so excited to talk to you, but I heard you, I saw you, I see how you show up for your guests and your audiences, and how beautiful it is to be in that state of presence and being. That's what it's all about.
Mm. And I feel it's something we need to remind ourselves, in the presence of others, because lives have become busier and there is more, to-dos, and we want to fix things. And I speak about this a lot with my podcast guests. And that's why I love the art of conversation, and I love the sitting down and being able to see the person again through screen or right beside me. It's to have that, and again, it's energetic for me. It is soul to soul, it's heart to heart, and it's sharing what you've experienced and learned on your journey. And I like to go deeper into it and also share some of my personal experience, because that's how other people, I always feel, they feel less alone. That look at Julie, she's in Florida, and how did she manage to go through that loss, with her husband being diagnosed and then passing so suddenly? And how did he find peace? Like, how come that didn't happen to me or to my husband or to my parents, or, and they dread the loss of another loved one because of the experience they had maybe when they were younger, or last year, or 6 months ago. And that's why I'm intrigued with you, Julie, with your husband getting the cancer diagnosis and passing so quickly after it, but him finding that peace in that moment and that kindness. Did that help you to accept, or did you still find like that you were angry, or that you're not ready for this? Why is this happening now?
Yeah, I mean, Yes to everything, right? Like
Mm,
it's a great question. First off, you talked about the state of doing versus being, and I think it's really important to at least emphasize that, right? Our
mm,
society lives in this chaotic state of doing. So it's when we are in the state of being, is when we are in the state of presence that allows us to come in contact with our grief, be it death or loss of any kind, right? So, yes, I was completely shattered. I was present for him as he was dying. My children and I held his hand bedside. I was with him. My parents were present. We were extraordinarily present. And I would say to all of your listeners, rather than coming to resistance with death, but where we can step in to a place of allowing and surrendering and being with one that we love, it opens to a place where there's not so much fear, but yet there's love. And
mm,
that love really can guide us to soften what we see as deep loss and grief, right?
mm,
So, to answer your question too about my family, yes, I was raw. It was shattering. I've talked with others. I speak in my book where I literally was pounding on the ground, holding his sweatshirt, crying, smelling him after, and saying, yes, why me? Why us? He was 51 years old. My children were 16 and 19. Absolutely. I would not be in the human form if I was not angry, if I did not have resentment, if I did not understand and question how can the man that I love, how can somebody I was with for 25 years disappear in 3 weeks? So that's the human aspect of it, right? That's only natural to be in that space. But the question is how do we come through it, right? How do we find the beauty, which I call in one of my chapters, the beauty through the pain? The opening is how we greet the pain, how we choose. Do we become the victim? Do we suffer? Do we sit in it? Or do we literally make a choice to greet it with kindness, with gratitude, and find a path back to our joy?
mm. As you say that, I can feel it. But in the moments of grief, sometimes people have fear. And that fear of what am I without this person? What will my life look like without this person physically in it? I don't know any other way now without them. And I know that may sound silly to people, and they might go, well, it's not about, what I feel, but that's what we're thinking. It's a lot of the time is how am I going to survive without the love of this person in my life? Because it has become part of our lives and who we are and how we show up in the world. So yes, we so physically miss that person and we want to hear their voice and feel their hand on our hand, but it's how we show up for ourselves every day without that person.
Yes, and yes, and yes, right? Because I talked yesterday with somebody from London about the content of identity shifting, right? My whom I was the day before my husband died and who I was the day after was never going to be the same person.
Mm,
I was never, my soul had completely shifted. So, yes, for every one of your listeners, that is real, right? When we lose somebody that we love in the physical and you can't touch them, be with them, or if you're married or a partner and your home is quiet, even if it's a pet and they're gone and their souls are not with you, like whatever that a divorce and the person is still alive, that
mm,
is a loss equally, and grief shows up. So our identity changes. The dynamic for my family of four with our loving dog, went to three, and then our dog died. And that shifting was significant. And it took years for us to work through. We are over 7 years today to shift through to where we are right now. So it takes a consciousness of awakening, of going through healing modalities, of wanting to work through the trauma and grief so that you do feel the pain, but that you make a choice that, okay, my identity is shifting. I am not happy with this. I thought I was going to grow old with my husband. I thought we would travel together. I thought my children would, this brings me tears, but I thought my children would have the blessing of having him present at their weddings, at grandchildren. Like those milestones break my heart. I always was as the lawyer, always could fix anything, right? Like, I can only be mom today. I cannot be their father. And it's very real for them that he is not present in the physical form. So, yes, that grief is very real. And yes, our identity has completely shifted, but it's really a choice to still, like when I wake up every day, like there's a prayer called Hineni, and it's like, here I am, and to know that it's up to me to be awake, to be having gratitude for my soul returning to my physical body in the morning. And literally for you, Sharon, I woke up with this energy of like, I know we have not met prior that we know of, but I immediately felt a connection to you as I listened to your podcast. And I was like, wow, I'm so excited energetically to speak to you. And this is everything that I could have hoped for because it's real. And those are the lessons. Like, how do we show up ourselves with another?
Mm, thank you, Julie. And even when you were speaking about your children, and again, the emotion so present and so real, I could even feel that for you because, of course, you're thinking of yourself and your loss of your partner that you fell in love with. But again, as mothers, it's, I feel that for my children because we want to protect our children, from any kind of suffering or pain. And we don't expect, those losses to hit them when they're so young. And I think what it is, it's the missing of what the future might have looked like for them with their father in it, that you're also, and we also grieve for when people leave us, in the physical. But I love your honesty about it. And I love the honesty about the anger that you felt, smelling Jim's sweatshirt and banging the ground, because I think that is a normal reaction for every person. We have to go through that anger because we sometimes find it hard to face. When you were angry, and you're obviously thinking of your children and your family and everyone else that, loved Jim, when did you feel a sense of, I want to say relief?
Mm, mm.
And
It's
I
a
know
beautiful.
that might sound like a strange word, but that's what's come to me.
No, no, no. And it's a perfect question, right? So I'll start to share with your audience ways that I work with people to healing. And I actually include this exercise in my book. Okay. So I moved from where we were and from where Jim died. We moved from Pennsylvania to Florida, and he died in a home we were renting. So I was building my own place. I thought we would build a home together as my second child was finishing high school. And so I found this sanctuary on the water for myself. And I really have surrounded myself in peace and tranquility. So one of the walls, if your listeners can imagine, is a whole wall of pictures, right? It is a wall from every milestone, all just glorious moments of our family's lives. And I used to wake up, Sharon, every morning and I would sob, literally sob. And then I don't know what happened, but one morning I woke up and I was looking at a picture of us in a cave, and we had those headlamps on our heads, everybody can imagine. And I can remember I got like stuck in a crevice and my kids like laughing and like, you know, um, just being together. So what happened was I looked at the memory, I experienced it with joy.
Mm,
I went back to it not with sadness for what was or for what could be, but just simply being in kind of that more present sense of what it is today. And it was a beautiful memory. So I take people through a process of having a picture with them, being able to reflect with it. And rather than looking at a place of sadness about the past or the future, but bringing it into the present with gratitude and joy.
mm,
That is what allows us to shift. And when we shift our energy into a space of gratitude rather than woe is me, the victim that is suffering, and this is not going to be my family, that was the beginning of literally a moment at which I said, my energy is finally shifting. I am shifting. This is a beautiful lesson. And it probably led me along the path of becoming a transformational soul coach. But it was like a process of knowing how we can shift ourselves.
Mm, that's beautiful. And I also feel that often sometimes when I'm working with groups, I'd say, we can have those bad days, we can have the days when we're extremely sad, angry, whatever it is, and we'll say, I can't find joy in that moment, in that day. And I ask them to go back and experience a memory of joy they had in their life, whether it is with a loved one or an animal or a friend or whoever it is, to go back and remember that and to see it and feel the joy in their body and then to expand of that joy because the joy is remembered the same way the sadness or the pain is remembered, and that we hold everything because joy is not everlasting, sadness is not everlasting, that they are all moments, aren't they? For me, Julie, that's what it feels like. There are moments in time that we've captured, we've banked inside ourselves and our energy, and we dip in and out when we need them, when we need to work with that emotion for whatever is going on.
Let me just say, you and I are so aligned that I'm so happy to be here with you. So yes, I do exactly the same thing with my clients. And so I that is part of heart math and heart coherence. So for your audience, even to just for a moment to consider closing their eyes and putting their hands over their hearts and do exactly what Sharon is saying, to come into a space, think of a moment that brought you so much gratitude, so much joy. This could be a birth. This could be just a moment outside in nature listening to a bird or the waves or the ocean, anything that moves you to that space and memory of joy. And we hear that within our being and re experience it, go through all of our senses. We want to hear it, see it, feel maybe the wind, the sun, understand that it's all moving through our nervous system. And as we move through this process, that joy expands within our being. And from those moments, we come to our healing. And that is exactly what heart coherence is. And that is the difference between finding ease versus being in dis-ease. And we all have the ability and the choice to find this ease. So, yes, we are all able to come to this moment of true heart coherence and embody that joy.
Mm, that is so beautiful, Julie. Thank you. I love any work with the heart, and I love any work connecting back in with, the joy we have felt. I know in life that, all of our emotions, our energy and motion, they move through us, and that some of them we are learning from. And the experience of being human and having those losses, those deep, heart-wrenching losses for us can be debilitating. But again, if we can find, as you said, the ease and the joy within the memories we have shared, especially with a loved one, and we hold on to them, they'll be ever present within our hearts. We can recall them, and we might shed a tear as we're smiling and laughing about a memory,
Of course.
but both can be present, I believe.
Yeah, no, very much so. And I would share with you too. So I'm blessed, and I say this to your listeners too, that have lost a spouse or a partner. I've been dating as a soul partner, a beautiful man, and his name's Glenn Cohen, and he's a master neurological intelligence life coach. So I share that because he works within the nervous system, right? So these woundings that you talk about, like where we feel pain, is real. But I want every one of your listeners to know, and I've learned through him being my partner and helping me through grief, and shall I say, my husband, it was a real soul journey, an intended connection, which I can share. But he's helped me work through my own grief. So we all can go within. We can all tap into those pains and woundings. And I never want one of your listeners to think that we don't honor that pain because it is real. It's just that you and I are sharing there's a way through.
Yeah. And that's the way I like to see it. Um, the simplest way I explain it to people, especially when I'm working with them, is when I was experiencing deep pain in my own life, I used to feel the pain in my body, Julie. And I would imagine that pain like a really dark tunnel, because that's what it felt like in my mind. But instead of being afraid of what was in that tunnel or at the end of the tunnel, I said, let me travel through the tunnel. Let me go through it. I am the light. There is light within me, and I'm shining the light in that darkness. Where does it want to take me? And sometimes it was within that darkness that I allowed myself to see myself truly and fully, and that it was okay to see that part of myself, that there was both in me, there was light and dark. And if by honoring the light and dark within me, again, I could honor the joy and the grief, the happiness and the sadness, the anger and the pure exhilaration when excitement took over my body and I wanted to dance everywhere and shout from the rooftops, that all of it is an expression of who we are in this human life.
You captured that so beautifully that it literally brings me to tears.
Oh,
Truly, it does. It's just such a beautiful statement of seeing everyone should know that there's nobody, there's no one. I say this all the time. We all have a story. There's darkness in everyone's life. But it's the choice of moving through that dark tunnel. It's the choice of finding the beauty in the pain. We get to decide our mindset. How are we going to go through it? And how do we find that light? That light is a vessel that exists within each one of us. I say, it's the connection to the divine. You can call it spirit, creator, universe. It doesn't matter the word, but that light exists for us to connect to and to know that it's real, right? And so, yes, there is resistance and anger with grief, and there's joy and love. And how do we bring that love in order to move through that deep pain? And that's what it's all about. You just shared that so eloquently and perfectly.
oh, thank you so much. Again, I can only share, as I say that to everyone, I can only share from my own personal and again, what I've learned or been taught by people that I've met throughout the years. And a lot of them have been people that have experienced, the most tragic of losses, you know, deep-seated losses that you would not want anyone else to experience. But again, that was part of their life's journey, their soul journey. And I like to see it as we're walking along a road, Julie, and on one side is love, and the other side is the fear. And you're walking along your beautiful road, Julie, and you're going to college and you're meeting your love, and you've all of these beautiful plans and excitement for the future. And the love is all there, you're inviting it all onto you, walking alongside you. And the other side, the fear is far off in the distance until it isn't. And next thing we feel like it is completely taking over us. But it's just like the love. We've just invited more of the fear to take over the path and to maybe block our, view for a while and not know where we're going. But that at any time, it's just us on the path, and who or what we invite to walk alongside us is again, just as you said, part of our choice when we are more aware or understanding of it.
Yeah, well, something you said I want to say for your listeners is really, really important. My original life coach that I worked with was this gentleman named Mike Meseroff, and he kind of led me to me doing my internal work, which I found my partner. And they both talk about fear as being false evidence appearing real. And I think it's really important to say that for your listeners. What is fear? Fear is what we create as false evidence appearing real. So I think we can remind ourselves that it's only a mindset that one is adopting, but that it doesn't necessarily really exist. And
Mm,
I question and I say to each individual, what is present? What is my really presence, and to really allow yourself to honor yourself and what you feel, and to really go in with what is that soul alignment, my passion, my soul purpose. It's very easy. Gosh, in your young 20s, my boys are 24 and 26. It's real. We can easily get lost in what we think society expects of us, no matter our age, right? So it's when we show back up in that space of love, and I believe, even more importantly, soul alignment, then the universe brings us exactly what is aligned with our soul, right? We haven't directly talked about it, but I pivoted from being in national education law for 28 years, working on US Supreme Court amicus brief cases, to becoming a transformational soul coach and a death doula. Now, who does that, right? Like people are like, how do you leave this huge career to go into this space that really embodies compassion, love, grace and kindness, dignity around agency of dying, and talking about death? It is because our society, our universe needs to raise that vibration of consciousness. This is what I agreed to in my soul with my partner before I came into this world. And I am delivering on my soul purpose. I have no problem saying at my wise old age of 57 and really completely embodying it, right? So I connect with the other side. And I had a beloved aunt who just came through the other night, 2 nights ago, my Aunt Marcia. And she said to me, Julie, just remember when you're working with others that there is no past, there is no future, there's only now. So if your listeners just can remember, there is only now, and not to, it's natural, but to pull ourselves out of that space about what could have been. If I sat with the what ifs, or every time I saw a father with a son, or a family that has all of the members of their family and felt sorry for myself, I couldn't move through. I have to make a choice to find the beauty, light, and joy in my life today with my children, with my partner, with all of my parents, my siblings, my nieces and nephews, my dearest friends, that I'm grateful. And that allows me to reconnect to myself.
Mm. That's beautiful. I keep saying it's beautiful, Julie, because it is the way you express it. And I know it wasn't just an easy thing. As you said, you had to do your own inner work and you had to sit with that pain and that darkness within yourself, all of the emotions that came with it. And again, who am I? That identity shift of who am I now without Jim? I'm still a mother to my sons, but I don't have the father present anymore. So what does that look like for me on a practical day to day? Don't mind this healing and this inner work and this transformation, that's happening sometimes without my choice. I'm choosing to be the best I can today for my children, to show up, to find the joy in those memories. So when you started that inner journey, which I love, because I always say the universe is within us, the answers and wisdom are within us if we take the time to go in and sit. I always say it's like I open up parts of me and I find a new library of wisdom that has been given to me on some level. And I'm like, ooh, what am I going to read today? And then I'll have a conversation with somebody like Julie and I'll go, that's exactly what I was inspired to, think more about, write more about. And you're talking about all of the topics that I absolutely love, Julie, from, going for your passion and purpose to falling passionately in love with somebody, having your children, following your career, but also experiencing the deep hardships in life that we do and finding a way through that and sitting with the darkness inside of yourself. But then to sit here opposite me, you're in Florida and I'm in Ireland, and to feel such gratitude for having those experiences and having the opportunity to choose where you wanted to align your soul, your purpose, and your passion with from every moment after that.
Yeah, you know what I would share? My book, Divine Ashes Ascending, and I'm not sure when this is live, but it will come out in October of 26. And that's the ascension, right? That's the awakening. And we can do that in so many different ways. And I encourage all of your listeners to listen to what comes up for you. For me, I was drawn to Sedona. I did a lot of work. One was with a Sufi woman who was lovely on hands analysis. And I found that my divine purpose was to trust in the unknown. So, what does that mean, right? Like, that was like the beginning of me unfolding, really starting to peel that onion and say, who am I? What is intended with this life of mine coming through this pain? And I went from that critical analytical thinker of a lawyer to this right brain, heart-centered soul to do that unfolding. But it takes so much presence to be in it each day. And I've done everything from Akashic records to working, on ancestral healing to soul imprints. So it depends on how spiritually open one is. But I will say to you, each modality, it could be as easy as yoga. It could be as easy as automatic writing, which means free flowing writing to your listeners for 10, 15 minutes every morning, like the morning pages from Julia Cameron, and really sitting with yourself and just allowing, right? Like we showed up to each other today. And so as we feel called to heal, to expand, whether it's to work with you, to work with me, others, to read, to share experiences, that's the beauty. And it opens. You just have to be willing to say yes, to allow, to surrender, and not to resist.
Mm. And I think maybe that's what a lot of people feel when they feel grief. Whether, as you said, it can be grief through a separation, it can be grief through, a physical passing. Is that resistance to experience something new because we want the old back, we want that person back, we want them here. Why did things change? I didn't want things to change. But when we can't change it, there is a part where acceptance comes into place, Julie.
Yes.
And the acceptance for me is a key to freedom. But it's sometimes very hard for people to find that acceptance. When did you feel that acceptance in your life?
Oh, gosh, that is such a great question. I need to really even just sit with that for a moment. Acceptance. I mean, in the early years, right, there's so much when anybody deals with a sudden death, there's trauma. So it takes a while before you can actually touch the grief. So that was a period of time. And then I stepped into the healing. So I would say to you, my acceptance came. It was such a beautiful moment. I love when you ask questions and I love we were just present with each other. So actually, my doctor's daughter, her name is Shelby Ellsbury. She was a professional ballerina in Denmark and I believe Boston, and then she trained in New York City Ballet. And during COVID, she was here in Sarasota. So we would go outside, and this is early, right? My husband died in 2018, so 2020. And we are doing yoga outside, looking at the water, just the two of us and sunrise, sunset in the rain. And I would say that was beginning of my acceptance. Literally standing in a positioning with my heart open and the being rained on and allowing myself to cry. So I guess, I would say to your listeners is that for me, it was in that deep acceptance with somebody else who was so kind, so loving, so present with me. And then I was able to experiencing the actual somatic, the energetic opening of my soul and I was accepting of my pain, but allowing it to pour through me and to release. So it was in that release, in those tears, literally just experiencing somatically that I would believe that would be the moment that I began my acceptance.
Even the being rained on, to allow yourself to cry as the rain falls on you, it is so ethereal in a way. It feels like nature was supporting you
Oh,
in that space of releasing, allowing, letting go. And the person that was with you, that she accepted you and held you as you were, allowing yourself to be. And what a beautiful gift that is to another, is just allowing them to be in whatever way they need to be.
it literally brings tears to my eyes because she should never have been in Sarasota, but COVID brought her to Sarasota, right? And I don't know, it was her mother or father, her dad's my doctor, somebody mentioned that she did yoga. When we feel that nudge to reach to somebody, one, I encourage your listeners to do so. But the acceptance, I speak to her like as if she was an angel because I'm looking at your picture in the background of a sunset. And sometimes we did yoga early in the mornings and we saw the sunrise. Sometimes it was in the evening and we saw the sunset because their place overlooks the Sarasota Bay. And sometimes it was in the rain, but we always stayed present in whatever nature brought us. And I think your point about nature is really important, no matter where your listeners are, be it in Ireland or be it anywhere in the world, is that there's always beautiful nature that surrounds us. And I encourage everybody to go be in nature because I believe that I would not have survived without the healing of nature. So I'm so glad you recognize that raining and the connection of what that ethereal experience was.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, Julie, it's lovely because as I'm feeling all of this from you, I can actually almost in my mind see you standing in the rain and seeing your tears fall, but the feeling of it, because grief can be hard on our body and it can be so painful to hold it, even though people are saying, I'm trying to let go, but it's too hard. We are, it's that not allowing it until we're able, and I think that's what it is for people. Allow yourself, to be softer, to be nurturing, to walk in nature, just as you said, you knew there was somebody that could help you, and that was in supporting you in your yoga practice, which allowed space for the body and for your emotions to flow. A beautiful journey if we look at it that way. And I know there's still many people that may listen to this podcast, as you know, Julie, and they're still very much in the grief process. And I would say to them to listen to you, to read your book, to listen to your truth about the pain, the banging, the anger, you know, but finding the joy in the photograph, of your family when you were a full unit as such, and remembering back to that memory and how beautiful it was. And that you had a very short space of time with Jim before he passed, and that you had the preparation time and the trauma that was involved around that. Did that lend you to your practice of being a death doula, where you could support others in
Oh,
their
without question, right? So
mm,
since I was a little girl, kind of my mother shares this in the intro of the book, but I will share this with your listeners. She said at the age of 7, her dad had died suddenly of a heart attack at 60. And I used to feel being tucked in at night under the covers. And one morning I shared with her, I saw my grandfather like all dressed up like that on the corner of the bed, but he would always tuck me in. And I came downstairs and I shared with her, and she had seen the same thing. And I was only 7, and she wasn't going to tell anybody, but she was just amazed that at a time that I said that. So I would say to you is that intuitively I've always been aware. I was with both grandmothers as they passed, as they transitioned. I believe it's very important to really be with the soul and to allow the soul to know it's okay to let go and to really be a guide in that space. I was with my father-in-law before he passed, and of course, my husband. So, yes, all of these experiences definitely led me to be wanting to become a death doula. So, I was working in a grief therapy program in hospice beforehand with young children that have lost siblings, parents, or grandparents. That it's called Blue Butterfly with Tidewell Hospice that my mother works in. And I did it originally. And then I found myself wanting to help people in transition. And I believe, and I'm volunteering only in that space right now with hospice. And I'm also working on a documentary film that's called A Butterfly Has Been Released, and collaborating with my book and with hospice. And the reason for that, honestly, Sharon, is that I believe we are love. I believe that in the end of the life, there's love. And when I was bedside with somebody recently and there was no family around, and I did not, just like I did not know you per se before today, but yet I feel I know you, standing by the bedside and being in meditation and feeling the connection through love to the transition. I remind everyone we come into this world with love, we leave with love. There's no material item that transitions with us. So, yes, in my heart, I believe, I am moving into this space of honoring my soul alignment, my soul purpose, And what do I allow? Talking about allow and accept is that every day it unfolds. I could never predict how this conversation was going to go with you, right? But I allow, you allow, we're here in presence together. So that's the beauty. And there's so many death doulas that exist around the world today. People can find them through INELDA. I trained with my mother, actually. She's a death doula as well, with Going with Grace. And I'm continuing to unfold and learn in this space. So just honoring it and knowing it's okay and it will be okay. And we
Mm,
can come to it with love.
mm. Beautiful. It is that way of we're coming into this world with nothing and we're going out with nothing per se, but we're going out with the expansion of our soul and the joy and the love that we've shared with the people that we were blessed to know in this human experience that is called our life.
Absolutely. And I would want to actually correct myself in that, like, yeah, materially leave without anything, right?
Yeah.
But spiritually, absolutely. I energetically believe our essence, our soul continues in spiritual form. And I connect with my husband all the time. I want people to know that that's very real. We connect numerologically. I get clairaudient messages. I share them in my book. I connected with my soul partner through his son and my son share the same birthday. And his son was born at the same time that my husband died. I mean, my connections are forever and ever in synchronization. So, yes, yes, and yes, we spiritually continue, we energetically continue, and I can always experience it. And it's, oh, that is the greatest blessing in my life.
Mm. That would be a sense of peace to a lot of people when they are grieving the loss of a loved one. And I hear them often saying to me, are they safe? Are they at peace? Where are they? Do they feel lonely without me? Are they still hurting? And all I can say is, Julie, anything that I've ever felt from spirit, including my own sister and many of the people that I've known that have passed or transitioned from this world, is pure love, is
Yeah.
pure love. And sometimes the sense of humor, the giddiness that they may have had, I can feel that they're like their personality coming through to their own loved one saying something funny, and I'm kind of going, I can't say that out loud, but then that's just who they were in life.
Yes, but I think that's a really important point. I mean, everybody listen. Their personalities come through. My husband is funny. He plays jokes on me all the time. He catches my attention all the time. I mean, yes, their personalities will come through. It's very real. And
Mm.
so I think that's actually some of the magical part of it. I mean, this is crazy, and I'll share this. My mother's brother was this big time criminal defense attorney. He decided that he was going to have Frank Sinatra. She was lying in bed next to him the night before he died, and he wanted to play the way we were, right?
Yeah.
And yet when he came through with her, he comes through, and Tina Powers is a medium, comes through singing, belting out regrets, I had a few. And so my mom's like, oh my goodness, like he was so committed to his career that sometimes he wasn't always present with family. So he was coming through to recognize that with her. There's no way she could have known that. And yet his personality, full blown, very big, very funny, very loving, came through completely. So yes, yeah, and yes, yes, people should know their personalities are very real. Every first time I connected with my husband, I think I laughed and cried equally as much.
And that's what I was just going to ask you is like that first time you connected, what was that feeling? And you've just answered it. It was the laughter, of his personality, but also, yes, the tears, because, and I think it's again tears of, again, acceptance or peace or both. That connection is still there, even past the physical, that if we silence and pause and listen, not just to the pain, if we focus in on that love, that I always say they're only a whisper away, and it's to listen to those little whispers within us, the little signs or synchronicities, just as you said, that will fill our days, and especially on the days when we need them the most.
Well, that's
And
really when they show up, because right,
yeah,
they feel that you need them, so they do show up. But just to answer your question, it's interesting to go back because I had my first session with Tina about 6 months after Jim died. And I would say to you, for your listeners, I actually felt relief. because I knew he was there. There was no way some of the things he was sharing, nobody else knew. There was no question in my mind. And he was so funny. So it was like, you know what? Yes, he's not physically with me, but it was just an affirmation that intuitively I had felt him with me from the beginning. And then it was like, okay, this is just so real. Like there's just nothing to question. I know this to be true.
I love that. And they will find a way to get that message through to you because they want you to feel that joy and love still in your life and that they are ever present. And that brings me on to Glenn, then your lovely soul partner now. And again, I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
I'm so happy for you because what you're sharing, about your life with Jim and where it has brought you on your journey. And then to meet someone that you are soul aligned with now in that soul partner. How was that, even that opening up to receive love from another love interest, you know?
It's a big question, and it's actually been, as if Glenn was here, he would say to you, it's been quite a journey. And not quite so easy always to be with me. But yes, it's like it really was a soul blueprint. I mean, he connected with me. I connected with him through literally Messenger, full share. And it was through somebody who was a therapist, but it turned out to be a prior girlfriend of his, somebody who I knew from childhood. This is the truth. And her name, she shares my name. So, anyhow, there were so many coincidences. And so, as we followed it, the first time we took a trip together. So, my husband connects through 333. And the first time we were together, we were near Blowing Rock, but we were in Boone, North Carolina. I have a picture in my book. It says 3,333 feet. And it says, wait, underneath it, it says, live it up. And you know what? My lesson is to live awake. I never even thought about it to this moment with you. I just caught it. So it's to live and die awake, but it's all about living. And so not only that, Jim shows up. I have pictures in the book for people who really want to see evidence and stuff, literally in the fire above my head because I was going through a grief and Glenn had me drop in and help me process it in my body because you must release and people have to be open to release however it shows up. But again, I was literally sobbing and then sitting in front of this stone fireplace and he has a picture in the fire and it's literally an outline of a face above my head. So Jim always showed up, but then also with humor. Sometimes he messed with electronics. Sometimes the things didn't work in the car. Sometimes, literally, this is funny. We were singing to certain songs, 60s, 70s, like whatever. And Jim would completely change the tune, like literally shift the music. And we would look at each other, we would laugh, and we're like, okay, that's not what we're supposed to be listening to right now. So Glenn has always teased that he is in a threesome, except that my
Ah,
husband's on the other side. And so, I mean, I say that to everyone that may be in the situation, or perhaps it's the partner of somebody that has died, is his respect for my children to their dad. My walls still, we have pictures of Glenn on the wall as well, but those pictures of my husband are still there. So he has a tremendous amount of respect for Jim. And there's this tremendous understanding that Jim intended for him to come into my life. And so, I said his son and my husband lived or was born and died at the same minute, but my husband was seeing 333 for years before he died. And he was an engineer and a lawyer. That meant he was like, why am I seeing these numbers? We have pictures of him pointing to the numbers. He told my best friend at MD Anderson, he's like, how am I going to connect with Julie and the kids? And she said to him, you will connect through these numbers. So it's very real and it's really magical when you're in it. Yes. So I would have to say, he's been a good sport.
I love that. I love it because, again, I think anybody in spirit wants us to feel loved and supported. And again, we will find the right person that will support us through, as you had have to go through the grief of Jim, but respecting that he was such a big part of your life, your son's life as well. And you're honoring what was, but you're honoring the present and where you are now as well, which is, as you said, we only have right now. Julie, I would talk to you forever and ever and a day because you've just been amazing. We've only briefly touched on many of the subjects of your life, sharing about your loss, your work, about grief, your soul alignment, and there's so much more that I know you will have shared in your book, Divine Ashes Ascending, The Journey of Dying and Living with Grace. And anybody that wants to connect with you can do that through risingphoenix.life, or they can contact you at Julie at risingphoenix.life. You're on LinkedIn, Julie Wright Halbert, and I will be putting all of those links up, Julie, so people can contact you directly, order your book, can they pre-order the book before October?
There's a book portal on my website, and you can sign up to be notified. And I also just started a Substack at Julie Wright Halbert as well that connects to everything. But yes, there's also free meditation. That's the opening meditation of the book if you're interested on the website as well. And follow me on Substack for writings that I will be sharing regularly.
Lovely. I will be the first person connecting with you on Substack because I'm also there. Julie, it has been amazing. There is so much about you, to be explored. And I hope in the future, maybe in early 27, when your book has been published and you've shared it more around the world, and you'll come back with the experiences of other people reading your story and what you have learned along the way through your beautiful work and how they respond to it, because I think it will be a great support for many people. So thank you so much.
I can't thank you enough. And I would be honored to return, Sharon, and be with you at any time, to be your friend, to be your soul partner in this journey, and just to continue growing together. It has been an absolute pleasure. I thank you immensely.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much. That was Julie Wright Halbert. I'll be putting all of the links up in the show notes. Please do and connect with her. And again, if you have been affected, by the loss of someone that you loved, whether it be, an adult person or a dog or a child or someone from a distance that you admired, that grief is real for you. That grief is held in the body, as myself and Julie spoke about. So if you're not ready to take that next step, just even sitting with yourself after listening to this podcast, holding yourself for a moment, nurturing yourself and offering yourself a little bit of compassion, even just for now, that it's okay to cry, it's okay to be angry or to laugh out loud or to just sit with the memories that you've shared with that loved one or furry animal, whatever it is in your life. Everything is for today, for now, and whatever you're feeling right now matters. So until next time, take care of you.